Good afternoon and welcome to this Google Hangout from the Resource Alliance. We are live at 1 o'clock in the UK, but we have people from all around the world joining in on this discussion and debate. We have people from Ecuador, from the USA, from Italy, many other countries, and we certainly have one participant from Australia as well. So welcome all. My name is Howard Lake and I run the UK fundraising website. I'd like to welcome and thank our fellow participants and debaters today. Arguing for the motion, we have Sean Triner. You can join in via the miracle of Twitter. You can send questions and comments, and we will try and include those in the discussion today. As all you need to do is to use the hashtag #RADebate. RA as in Resource Alliance, hashtag RA debate, and we will try and pick up and include all your comments. Just to give you the background, as everyone well knows, the Ice Bucket Challenge appeared out of nowhere last August and raised $100 million. It was preceded by another visual campaign, again not started by a charity, and that was the No Makeup Selfie campaign, which raised £8 million for Cancer Research UK, again in very short time, within under a week. So are these here to stay? Are they the future of fundraising? Are they just another channel, or actually have they passed their sell-by date?
This argument about viral campaigns are passé and have had their day is a bit of a big line, really, because for me, I should put my cards on the table first and say, look, I took part in the actual Ice Bucket Challenge. I did it. I was actually very cold, but I still managed to do the Ice Bucket Challenge. So I went for it and enjoyed myself. But I think Howard invited me onto this debate because shortly after that, I wrote a blog called Why the Ice Bucket Challenge is Bad for Fundraising. And at that time, it was already en route for raising $26 million. So it was looking pretty good. So I was being a bit of a killjoy. Why would I do that about something which was doing good? And good for an organization that really struggles to raise money in the sort of more traditional ways, or has chosen not to, or whatever in the past. But how does it actually relate when we're looking at these viral campaigns? Well, it is bad for fundraising, and I'm going to explain why. I don't think I'm not as bad as Jeff Brooks here. Jeff Brooks is an American fundraising guru, and one of the best blogs on the planet. The Future Fundraising Now blog is fantastic. I suggest you sign up to it. But he was talking about what's going to happen now that we've had it. Delusional people would come along saying, we're going to create a massive viral campaign for you. Well, there was quite a bit of that, but actually in my experience in Australia and also from my colleagues in the UK and New Zealand, it sounds like most of these weasels weren't really weasels. They were people it seems like it was really done well. They put a lot of thought into it, but it didn't quite hit that Ice Bucket Challenge sort of success. And then we've got smear for smear, which certainly has people thinking the word itself is not a particular pleasant word of the English language. But and again, there's been a few campaigns like this. So why am I so negative about this? Well, some of them raised like $100 million. You know, we had those two really big ones, and then we have these things that might raise, I don't know, any 1,000 to 50,000 or nothing. But for each one that's actually really successful, there's almost certainly tons of failures, and there's almost, like, even more certainly, failures to get off the ground in the first place, where people haven't actually even got there. They've just talked about it and haven't made anything happen because it's hard, and just making these viral things work is really difficult. So my opposition to it is more about the fact that they are distracting away from just good, solid, hard work. These guys make $5 million a year, that's US dollars, so that's about £2.5 million a year from Facebook. And they do it through just solid, hard work. And I think that's for me is the key. And it all does come down to age. Now, a lot is said about relationship fundraising and why we've got to build relationships with people, especially from the UK. And what we do know from events like this is when you ask people what their event was for, they can't remember. Ice Bucket Challenge, you see some of the videos, people saying, I'm raising money for, what is it again? People get involved in the event, but they have no commitment or relationship to the charity. Well, who gives a shit? If you raise $100 million, who wants a relationship with people? I mean, I'd rather take $100 million from one campaign from people who don't build a relationship than slog really hard every year for $5 million a year from loads of people who do want a relationship. The point here is that the chances of it working are just so much lower. And if we do get it working and we get it working in a strategic way, we're going to get older donors. And we know that older donors are the best donors, even in social media. And as we've seen from the data, we've proven time and time again that anybody who comes through in social media, the older ones will last longer. They will give a lot more money. The same for face-to-face. The older people will last longer. They will give more money. It doesn't mean that we should reject social media because it's young. Soy Dog, which does very well online, they've got 850,000 likes or so, but they're really focused on getting women above 45 years old. They've actually got more than half, about 53% of all the people that like them on social media, and that's a lot of people, 450,000 people, are actually women who are above 45 years old. This is their target audience, and these are the people that donate. And when I compare that to charities who have failed campaigns, even like viral campaigns, their profiles are much younger, and it's not surprising that they don't continue to build a relationship. So have viral campaigns, are they passé, and have they had their day? Well, I don't think so, because I think they never had their day. A few people won the lottery, just like a few people win the lottery all the time. I think that's fantastic and good on them, and it's revolutionized their organizations. But it's really not a good strategy. Strategically speaking, they haven't had their day. And in fact, when you look at the total amount of time spent by charities trying to get the next big viral campaign compared to following best practice, UNICEF, for example, there's a lot to be desired in some of the mystery shopping that I've done in some of the nations on their legacy programs. So there's a lot of, and there's a lot more money there, and there's a clear A, B, C, D, and E that you can do on that. So I think that they are not passé as such, but I still think you should vote for the house that they are, because that's the closest to the motion. And in the meantime, get into the hard work, learn about fundraising. I'm sure many of you already know lots about it. Read the books, follow the blogs, and do what we know works in the real world.
So welcome, Kirsty. And over to you. You have your 5 minutes to explain why there is life in viral campaigns.
Of course, as you mentioned, the first was No Makeup Selfie, which raised £8 million in just 1 week. And as a result of that, it was able to fund 10 clinical trials that they didn't have the money for. And a couple of months later, as you said, in all shores, and Makeup Selfie was predominantly about raising money for Cancer UK. There were other cancer charities that benefited and raised $100 million, and the MND Association in the UK raised £4 million on JustGiving alone and £7 million overall. But what was interesting was we obviously watched this very carefully at JustGiving, crunched the numbers in the big countries around the world. So this was undoubtedly a global challenge. But what's really interesting, and I believe integral to the success of these campaigns, and you mentioned this yourself, Howard, is that they were started at grassroots level by supporters, not the charities, and I think that's really fundamental. And this is probably why some of the other campaigns that Sean has mentioned, like Wake Up Call for Syria for UNICEF and Unselfie for Giving Tuesday, and even, as you said, Smear for Smear by Joe Cervical Cancer Trust, have been less successful. What's also really interesting is how these viral campaigns have really been criticized in the press. Sally Hughes wrote in The Guardian that No Makeup Selfie opened the floodgates for more reductive, sexist, and self-congratulatory campaigns for ominous gain. The wake-up call selfie was deemed, again in The Guardian, as just another egotistical celebrity stunt. The Telegraph called the Ice Bucket Challenge a ghastly, narcissistic freak show combining the worst elements of social media self-love and celebrity worship, jumping on the social media bandwagon, trying too hard and not succeeding. I actually wrote a response to that article for the Guardian voluntary sector, and I dug a little bit deeper into that claim. I spoke to Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust, who are a really tiny charity in the UK, and in 1 week, that hashtag had almost 15,000 mentions and 13,000 views. So, do I believe that viral campaigns have had their day? Absolutely not. I think what we do need to do, though, is change our Australia. Doesn't mean that it's not been successful. In fact, Smear for Smear was indeed a viral campaign for that charity. And what's interesting about that campaign is it wasn't about fundraising. There was a small fundraising ask, but actually the campaign was about awareness. And I definitely think they succeeded in doing that. In fact, I would actually just love to ban the word viral altogether. I really hate that word. I think it's, as you said, Sean, it is a lottery. It's actually not something that you can do. There are no guarantees that a campaign is going to go viral, but it really is definitely something that you can prepare for. And I really would urge charities to prepare for, if they are to become the next Ice Bucket Challenge charity recipient, to really think about, as you mentioned, Sean, what are they going to do? Have they got a supportive care journey and turn them into lifelong supporters of the charity? Yes, absolutely, I think we can. And I definitely think viral campaigns are here to stay.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. So we have two sides of the debate. We are taking questions via Twitter. In the meantime, I will remind you that the Resource Alliance is holding their fundraising online conference. And this is a free conference that talks about digital fundraising, addresses digital fundraising, but it takes place only online, and there is no charge to use it. It takes place on the 14th of May. Campaigns ever run the risk of irritating some of our donors, both current and prospective. So I will put that to Sean, I think. Are we irritating people?
It's not really the point, is it, as far as I'm concerned? I think if you look at face-to-face, for example, which has taken off in many countries over the last 20 years, which was the first time in history that strategically large volume reminded that you are wealthy and you have an opportunity to change somebody's life in a profound way by giving $35 or £20 or 65 whatever or euros or whatever every month is irritating. I just don't think we need to worry about those things. We have a really clear mission. Our mission is to help people that we help, and without going off on our mission. So I'm not just saying anything goes. We shouldn't start smuggling drugs, because that would probably raise more money for us, but it is definitely irritating. I'm talking about within the moral framework that charities exist within.
Okay,
yeah.
Kirsty.
If it's irritating, perhaps the charities need to look at why it's irritating. Is it their tone of voice? Is it because they're posting 50 times a day? Because yes, that was really key, was sharing the milestones along the way. So as actually Sean very rightly pointed out, there has been not even a whisper of how much money Wake Up Call has raised. No idea. And funny enough, that's one of the ones I took part in. I didn't do the Ice Bucket Challenge, I didn't do No Makeup Selfie, but I did do Wake Up Call. And I have no idea that whilst these viral campaigns are happening, that instead of just pushing people to keep doing it, but to also tell people how much it's raised, tell people what they we're talking about £1 million in one day. It's a lot of money. It gets people excited.
We've got Emma asking Kirsty, talking about preparing for a campaign to go viral. What steps should a charity take?
Yeah, well, a classic example, and you can look this up, that Cancer Research UK, the whole reason that they spotted No Makeup Selfie was because obviously they're quite a large charity and they're lucky enough to have a social media team that's more than one person. And what they do is they monitor their social media accounts after hours, so they don't just do the 9 to 5. So the first kind of tweets that they had seen were something like at 9:30 at night, where they picked up on the fact that people were doing this for them and nominating them to be the recipients of this selfie campaign. So one of the best things you can do, whether you have to use volunteers to continually, monitor, I'm not saying 24 hours, but, most people are on Twitter probably hours picking up momentum, like Macmillan did for the Ice Bucket Challenge. They saw that their supporters were doing it for them, and they ran with it. They started encouraging it, they put a landing page on their website, they started posting about it on Facebook, they included it in their emails. So, these are the kind of steps that you can take.
Most Charity of the Year pitches draw a blank. So does that mean Charity of the Year deals are passé? I'll give that one to Sean. What do you think?
Certainly when I was working at Mind, a mental health charity in England, and we looked at things like Tesco's Charity of the Year, which in those days, this was the olden days, I think it was raising about £200,000 or maybe £2 million in those days, but a lot of money. We looked at it and we just sort of looked at staff time was going into that and what chances of different charities having success were. And we were able to kind of work out, and this wasn't just alone, we were chatting to some other organisations as well. And we worked out that basically it was probably a waste of money for nearly all charities. The Tesco's was pretty much going to stick with maybe a dozen or different types of charities that worked with its customers, and yet they would receive hundreds or perhaps thousands of applications. Just a waste of time for all of those. And in those days, the amount of money that is raised, we added it up, and we raised a 10 or 20% profit for the sector. If you took everybody's opportunity costs and time trying to work out how to apply for those, about how we use those resources in anything.
There are more questions. Emma has asked, have we seen any viral campaigns created by a charity be successful? She points out that both the No Makeup and Ice Bucket Challenge had origins outside the charity and were then nurtured by charities. So basically, can any charity successfully create its own one? Perhaps JustGiving has got some experience of that. So Kirsty?
Well, as we know, there haven't been that many viral campaigns last year. But yeah. Smear for Smear, for me, is a perfect example of a social media campaign that was started by a charity that had viral success. Yes, possibly not everybody's heard of it. As I said, it wasn't meant to be a fundraising campaign. It was more about awareness. In 1 week, it had 15,000 mentions of the hashtag on Twitter and a reach of 109 million. Traffic to their website increased by 41%. I mean, to be honest, the true test will be, and we'll only see this in probably a few months or a year, the aim was really to get women to have their cervical smear test. Did it raise £8 million? No. But did it achieve its own objectives to a degree? Yes.
Okay, and you're right, as you said earlier, that viral is a particularly broad word. And I think part of the question here is, it all comes down to data. Do these actually work? Do we know they work? So how can we measure the success of these so-called viral campaigns? I'll let Sean answer that one first.
It's always a mathematical thing. So it's interesting with cervical cancer versus getting women to get more smear tests. The only real measure is, did it increase the number of women that went and made sure they got their tests? It probably is good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we've actually moved forwards on our objective, our charitable outcome. And then we do need to be careful. I remember when I was in events fundraising, the excuse that we'd make when an event bombed was, oh yeah, but we've got awareness. So we've really got to be careful what we mean by awareness, and we're both, like with certainly with the ALS campaign. Raising awareness for ALS is not going to have a big impact. Really got to focus on the money. And the measure there really is money. And we mustn't forget the money that we have used in putting it all together, our staff time, our opportunity costs, and all sorts of things like that. So also what we're finding as well, certainly with Soy Dog and Australia for Dolphins and other organisations, Australia for Dolphins gets most of its money from outside of Australia. So one thing that Kirsty talked about was, why have borders? Facebook doesn't really have borders, so let's just not worry about those borders. But raising money like that is really based on advocacy. And if you take a really thorough strategic advocacy campaigns and turning them into fundraisers, because it's usually relatively easy to do that. The Soy Dog campaign had an advocacy, it's like $5,000 out of those first 200,000, and then it made about $2 million out of the next million. Really the best way to go for any advocacy campaign is, I don't think one should be run by the advocacy team and one by fundraising, but fundraising should piggyback ride any successful advocacy.
Okay, Kirsty, do you have any other views on measurement?
Icebreaker Challenge is they were not charity-led, they were supporter-led. So really the charity didn't actually have any objectives to start with. You know, so it's quite easy for that to have exceeded expectations, to raise lots of money, because possibly it didn't feel contrived, for want of a better word. You know, it was really about people taking this on and challenging their friends, and the charities just trying to build momentum and keep it going because they could see that it was working. You know, I don't think the Cervical Cancer Trust said, let's create a viral campaign, and I would argue that anybody who says, let's create a viral campaign, really think twice about that, because it's probably not going to happen. Let's create a campaign. Let's set these objectives, and hopefully, you know, we'll exceed them, and maybe it'll go viral.
Absolutely. I've just seen a very good point from Charlotte Simmons on Twitter, who's pointed out that arguably even the less successful viral campaigns at the moment could be worthwhile, simply because everyone is looking out for the next big thing. So while they are sort of flavour of the month, even the smallest ones might get noticed more now than perhaps in a few years' time if this phenomenon does eventually die down. So yes, I quite like that point. I'm wondering if there's one area where perhaps there is a meeting of minds, and that is that because viral campaigns are just beginning, and this is a point from JT in London, and JT says perhaps viral campaigns should be allowed to happen organically and not forced by organisations. So effectively, do you agree, Sean and Kirsty, that organisations should not attempt to manufacture a viral campaign? They should always be in response mode. Is that the best way to take advantage of these? Go on, I'll let you answer that.
It's all about resources, basically. I think that if you notice that a campaign is raising lots of money for you, then I think you should put some resources up, and you should put an email trail. You should have triggered emails ready to convert people to regular giving. You should brief your phone agency. You should actually try and see if any of these people are actually going to become donors, and make sure that you keep those on. That's almost certainly the right thing to do. So it might mean you wait until it gets to a certain point, but I would still make sure that if it does do that, then you definitely need to be up there. And yes, you should pay for posts. I mean, one of the things that we notice when something is doing well on social media, and again, I'm definitely not anti-social media. It's the biggest area of growth for us at the moment. It's putting resources into viral campaigns rather than good old-fashioned solid hard work, which happens to be on social media. And what I would say is you need to do that work. If someone is making it work, organic is great, but then pay. We know that by paying for organic traffic, we can increase income and likes and everything else by 10 or 15 times. And half of those leads would come from organic still. So paying for stuff actually drags organic up quite dramatically as well. Probably the viral effect, sorry, but it does actually do that. So I think, yes, the organization should, if it happens, get there, but equally, if you win the lottery or you get a large bequest, you should strategically think about what to do with that and do it quick. You know, there's we just had a very bad tropical storm in Vanuatu with many people killed. And charities weren't expecting that, but they immediately got out and they got their campaigns out. And I received loads of emails over the last 2 days asking for money. And I know that if I'll donate, they will be following me up with a series of emails converting me to emergency preparedness regular giving. And I will get some phone calls from them asking me the same. And I think that's the same with the viral campaign. If it's happening, grab onto it.
Kirsty, what do you think? Should organisations try to steer clear of creating their own attempted viral campaign? Should they always be in response mode, reaction mode? Is that the best use of time?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think there is any point trying to make anything go viral. And definitely, if it does go viral, response mode is absolutely the way to go. What's really interesting is with No Makeup Selfie, Capitalise UK only put money behind the thank you adverts. So they didn't spend any money trying to get people to take part. They let it take its course. They let people do what they wanted to do. They only put money behind thanking people because they wanted to make sure that everybody had seen that message. Interestingly, with Ice Bucket Challenge, we saw the opposite happen. So we saw Macmillan Cancer, they were definitely using promoted Facebook posts and Twitter adverts. They also used paid Google AdWords, as did MND Association. So whilst it wasn't their campaigns, they did definitely use the resource that they had. And I think also that campaign was really interesting because it was very clear that No Makeup Selfie was for Capitalise UK, even though some people did choose to support other cancer charities. It did seem a little bit like Ice Bucket Challenge was about doing it for whichever charity you felt you wanted to do it for, and it wasn't necessarily just for the MND Association. And that's exactly what Macmillan did. They saw their supporters want to do it for them, and they encouraged that. They put paid money behind it, and they ended up raising something like £3 million. So, you could say that even though it was an organic campaign, they then did put paid behind it, and they benefited.
Yeah, fair enough. Just to remind people that you can still vote. This is the debate. We want to know whether you believe that this House, that viral campaigns are passé and have had their day. It's still fairly close, although there may be a trend developing. We will see. So do share your votes via Twitter, and we'll top it all up. If you look for the hashtag #RADebate, you'll be able to see the different options. So if you want to agree with the motion that Ice Bucket Challenge and No Makeup Selfie are passé, then use the hashtag #RAVoteYes. If you disagree and support Kirsty's view, then use the hashtag #RAVoteNo. So we've got a few more minutes left. There are some very good points. Quite rightly, Chris Aldridge has pointed out, can we define viral charity campaign and had their day? Yes, I agree, Chris. Both can mean very, very different things to different people. I think that's part of the problem with debates like this. The terminology that we tend to use is being used in a very, very broad and often unfocused way. But anyway, there's still been some good advice. What we're going to try and do is perhaps after this, in the comments beneath this video that you'll be able to review, should you wish, on the Resource Alliance's Google Plus or YouTube account page, we'll add some of the links to some of the resources that Kirsty and Sean have mentioned, so you can find out more. I'll also remind you that this event is being run to mention that the Resource Alliance's Fundraising Online conference is now open for registration, where you can get up to 2 days, 16 sessions of free online advice and comment. There's no charge for it. It takes place exclusively online, and it takes place on the 13th and 14th of May. And Sean is definitely one of the presenters, and he will be presenting on integrating digital into your old-fashioned fundraising stuff. So I think that's come clear from some of his comments and arguments today. So I'm still looking out for any other questions we might have. But actually what we'll do, a very good point. Celine Roy has just posted Do we measure by the long term or the short term? Do we measure by the awareness raised or the money raised? So let's come back to the issue of measuring. Can we yet measure the long-term value of some of these social campaigns? Kirsty, any views on long-term value, or is it too soon to say?
Really, I think that's all down to the charity. It's really about how they take the information that they've got. So have they got the donor's details, for example, if they donate on JustGiving and the donor shares their details? Have they got some kind of onboarding process? That's really key. I think if charities don't do that, then yes, they probably just gonna have the money and that's about it really. So I think it's really key to prepare in advance for if this were ever to happen to your charity. Really think about what you would do with these donors, and then yes, absolutely. I think if you were to speak to the M&D Association now, and this has been what, 8 months since I started challenge, I think they'd probably be able to give you some statistics of how many people signed up for direct debit orders, how many people have gone on to do other things. So yeah, I definitely think, you know, you could probably start measuring that now. And obviously Cancer Research UK has such an amazing legacy from the No Makeup Selfie. They've been able to fund 10 trials that could have a massive impact for cancer research. And, you know, that's something that you almost can't put an ROI on. So yeah, I definitely think that, you know, these things could be measured, should be measured, and they should start being measured from the minute something goes viral.
Fair enough. Thank you, Kirsty. Right, we have just under 10 minutes left, so I'm going to ask both our debaters to respond or sum up, each with 2 minutes to remind you of their arguments and their views on the value of these viral campaigns. So I'm going to start once again with Sean Triner of Pareto Fundraising. Sean, would you like to conclude and sum up your views again on this debate?
Okay, why should you vote for me? I think in the end, it's not so much about that word passé. It's, for me, the message that we want to send out is around resources, resource allocation. Unless you work in a charity which has got so many resources, it's fantastic, then you just need to get on with your jobs, do the strategic work that you know can work. We include social media, definitely includes digital, and target the right people that are going to become long-term donors. And Kirsty actually totally came on my side at the end of her session when she said, she totally came over and said basically, well, prepare for it. If it happens and somebody else does it, then great, jump on it. Well, that's great. So she obviously thinks they're pretty passé for us to be spending strategic work on as well. We shouldn't be spending our fundraising time on trying to design these. So we're already in agreement with that anyway. We have limited resources. We need to get concentrating on real outcomes. You said that they managed to do 10 additional pieces of research or studies with Cancer Research UK, and that's fantastic, my former employer. But the question is, how many charities have had to reduce effectively what they have been able to do because they've been spending so much time trying to get a viral campaign up and running? Everything that we're doing is to raise money for outcomes. It's to help the kids, it's to help the forests, it's to help the animals, whatever it is. That's what we're trying to do, and that's the most and best ultimate measure. But we still have to take an on-balance measure and say, well, this didn't work, so should I have spent this time doing some bequest fundraising or some social media promotions using phone and integrated campaigns? Thank you. Vote for Sean, or for the House.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, Kirsty, your chance to sum up your argument on this debate.
Well, I would argue that actually Sean has come over to my side because the topic wasn't are viral campaigns started by charities per se. The topic was are viral campaigns per se. So I think you kind of have put yourself in the foot with that one. Yeah, I absolutely do agree it is to a degree about resource, but I would also argue that the NMB Association is or at least was, a pretty small charity when I Spot a Challenge took off. And actually, they were quite slow in the beginning to react. I think that they could see the value in it and they upped their resources. Whether they did that by getting volunteers in, whether they did that by possibly paying a freelancer, I don't actually know. But I don't think you have to be a big charity to be able to sort of ride that viral wave should it happen to you. And I would really argue that it's not a waste. I think it's a waste trying to make a campaign go viral. Yes, I agree with that. It is not a waste to do a campaign on social media, that you have set very specific objectives, very specific targets, and if you reach those targets, it's definitely not a waste. I mean, we could argue that doing anything is a waste in fundraising if it doesn't pay. I guarantee there'll be another one this year. So yeah, vote for no.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kirsty. Very impressive that both sides were claiming that the other person had come on their side, which is not bad for on opposite sides of the planet at this very moment. One in bright sunshine and one in the depths of night. Right, we've just about finished. So I'd like to say thank you very much indeed to everyone who watched and took part via Twitter, to all the people around the world who joined in. Thank you for being part of this Resource Alliance Google Hangout. The recording of this will be available. We'll try and update it with some comments underneath with relevant links. Yes, Chris Aldridge, you're right on Twitter. No one yet has shared any sort of ROI figures yet. Maybe one of us can add some examples or links to further information on that, and sticking with the data. I do have a result for the votes based on a modest number of votes. I think that the House has lost, so I'm afraid Sean, all that late night hasn't quite swung the argument yet. So well done, Kirsty. Clearly, they're convinced that there is more life left in social and viral campaigns. But again, it does depend on what we mean by that definition. So thank you very much to both Kirsty Marrins of JustGiving and to Sean Triner of Pareto Fundraising. Don't forget, everyone, that you can still start registering for fundraising online, which takes place between the 13th and 14th of May 2015, the free online fundraising conference where you can listen to more of Sean's view and advice and experience. While you're also here, don't forget you can sign up to the Resource Alliance's YouTube channel and to their Google Plus page. Thank you very much, freezer rather than the ice bucket. But I do believe that Kirsty has carried the day. So no, this house does not believe that the selfie fundraising campaign is over. So with that, I'll say thank you very much indeed, and good afternoon and good night for all. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks, Becky at Resource Alliance.